The moment you stop giving her the attention she's always counted on, the air changes. At first, it feels like a scene from a thriller. You see her shift in ways you were never meant to witness. One day, you are her anchor. The next, she rewrites the script, tests your patience, and reaches for validation in places that cheapen what once felt sacred. And you wonder, was it ever love, or was it always control? But here's the paradox. What looks like rejection is actually the hidden doorway to power. This is the turning point where most men crumble, scrambling to prove, to chase, to win back approval. Yet the Stoic path shows a higher ground. Because your worth was never hers to grant, it was yours to command. If this message strikes you, don't just nod, act. Smash that like so this truth reaches other men walking the same fire. And in the comments, tell me. Drop a 1 if you've felt her test, or a 2 if you've resisted it. Hold steady, because what comes next will test you harder than anything before. Let's dive in. 1. The storm of her tests. Brother, the moment you stop chasing, she feels it before she understands it. Your silence hits harder than anything you could have said, because it rewrites the rhythm she's always counted on. For years she believed she owned the script, that you would always answer, always respond, always be there to reassure her whenever she pulled away. But the day you stop feeding that script is the day the storm begins, and make no mistake, she will test you harder than she ever has before. At first, these tests won't look dangerous. She may withdraw affection just slightly, enough to make you question yourself. She may flirt in front of you, or drop a name of another man into conversation, watching you like a hawk for the smallest crack in your composure. She may start an argument over nothing at all, just to see if you will raise your voice, chase her energy, or fall into defending yourself. And your instincts, the very habits that once defined you, will rise up screaming, prove yourself, fix it, win her back. That's how men get caught. That's how men lose the frame before they even know what frame means. Psychology explains this dance clearly. What she's doing is not about love. It's about ego defense. When the steady flow of your validation dries up, her nervous system registers scarcity. Scarcity breeds panic, and panic breeds tests. It's not affection she's chasing, it's control. She wants to know if she still sets the tempo, if she can still bend your emotions like she used to. And this is where most men fail, because they mistake the storm for an opportunity. They believe if they just prove enough, if they just show their loyalty in that moment, she will soften. But the truth is, every reaction only confirms her power. Every emotional outburst, every frantic reassurance is another thread tying you back into the role of the chaser, the moth circling her flame, burning its wings without ever reaching the light. But there's another path, the Stoic path. When she tests you, you don't fight the test, and you don't collapse under it. You refuse to play. You stand so firmly in your frame that nothing she throws can shake it. This isn't about cold indifference, it's about calm sovereignty. She says, "You've changed." You look her in the eye and answer, steady as a mountain, "Maybe, because I'm focused on what matters now." That response cuts through the noise because it doesn't defend, doesn't chase, doesn't break. It reflects a man who knows where he's going, and that is something no test can counterfeit. And here's the paradox. The less you react, the stronger the storm becomes, at least at first. She will throw more, press harder, search for the crack in your armor. But each time you choose silence over reaction, calm over chaos, you add another stone to the fortress of your self-respect. You stop being predictable, and the moment you stop being predictable is the moment you stop being controllable. She may adapt to the new dynamic and step into your frame, or she may reveal that all she ever wanted was validation, not you. Either way, you win, because your worth is no longer a currency she can spend. Understand this. Tests only have power if you volunteer to take them. Once you stop volunteering, the storm exhausts itself against the walls of your composure. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. Not only does she realize you don't care in the old way anymore, but you realize you don't need to. That shift is the beginning of freedom, the beginning of becoming the man she can no longer toy with, and the man you'll finally respect when you look in the mirror. And this is only the first reaction she has when your energy changes, because when the storm quiets down, what follows next cuts even deeper. Her ego takes the first real hit. 2. Her ego takes the first hit. When your attention begins to fade, she doesn't feel heartbreak first. She feels a blow to her ego. For a long time, your steady presence was the fuel she used to confirm her self-image. Every call you answered, every compliment you gave, every time you made her the center of your world, it wasn't just kindness. To her, it was proof. I matter. I'm in control. I can pull his energy anytime I want. That fuel isn't about love. It's about validation. And when that validation is suddenly gone, the first crack isn't in her heart, it's in the mirror she uses to see herself. Here's the trap. Instead of reflecting inward, instead of asking, why did his attention drift, her mind goes into defense mode. Psychology calls this ego defense. When the ego feels threatened, it doesn't seek truth, it seeks relief. Relief through restoring the old balance. That's why you'll see her working overtime to get that attention back. She starts posting carefully crafted photos online, the kind designed to pull comments and likes. She makes sure to dress provocatively when she knows you'll see her, not always for strangers, but specifically for you. She casually mentions that other men are noticing her, hoping to spark your competitive instinct. Every move is designed to trigger you into proving she's still the priority. And this is where most men collapse. They hear those subtle signals and rush to reassure. They think, if I just give her more attention, she'll feel secure again, and things will go back to normal. But the truth is brutal. When you chase to rescue her ego, you teach her that her sense of worth dictates your behavior. You make her ego the master of your emotions. And once you cross that line, brother, you've lost her respect. The Stoic path is different. You don't protect her ego at the expense of your own. You hold the line. You let her feel the discomfort of no longer being the unquestioned center of your world. Because it is not your job to shield someone from the consequences of taking you for granted. If she says, you've changed, you don't care like before, your answer should be calm, firm and clear. I care about becoming the man I said I'd be. That's not coldness, it's clarity. It communicates that your identity doesn't orbit her moods, but your mission. And here's the paradox. The more she senses that your validation is no longer free, the deeper her respect begins to grow, even if she never admits it out loud. Because beneath the surface, she knows every other man rushes to feed her ego, but you don't. And that difference is rare, magnetic, and unshakable. Brother, let her ego take the hit. Don't rush to heal what was never yours to fix. Because when you refuse to bow to her need for constant validation, you prove you are a man who draws worth from within, and that is the first step toward becoming untouchable in her eyes. But the story doesn't stop there. When her ego can't get the relief it craves, she doesn't just sit still, she goes searching. And that's when she starts seeking validation elsewhere. 3. She seeks validation elsewhere. When your attention fades, don't think it goes unnoticed. It doesn't just leave an empty space, it creates a hunger. For her, your steady focus had become oxygen. Every text you sent, every glance you gave, every effort you made was like air feeding the fire of her self-image. And when you suddenly stop, when the supply line shuts down, she doesn't just feel the absence, she panics. Because validation, in today's world, isn't just a bonus. For many women, it's survival fuel. Here's where psychology makes it crystal clear. The brain craves dopamine from attention just as much as it does from sugar or alcohol. Every like, every message, every compliment is a hit. And when you take yours away, her system goes into withdrawal. This isn't heartbreak, it's loss aversion, the fear of losing what she once thought was guaranteed. And that fear drives action. She won't sit quietly and reflect. She'll go searching. At first it's subtle. She posts that photo that looks innocent but is designed to spark comments. She laughs just a little louder around other men, knowing you'll notice. She suddenly becomes too busy for you but finds endless time for everyone else. And then it becomes more obvious. She reaches out to old male friends, the ones she once assured you were like brothers. To her, these are not acts of betrayal. They are attempts to breathe, to fill the gap your silence has created. But here's where men destroy themselves. They see her behavior, feel that sting of jealousy and panic. They think, she's slipping away. I have to fight for her. I have to compete with these men. I have to prove I'm still the one. And in doing so, they step right into the trap. Because the moment you compete, you place yourself in the same category as every other man fighting for her attention. You give up your position as the prize and become another bidder in the marketplace. The Stoic man doesn't play that game. He understands that her search for validation elsewhere is not a sign of strength. It's proof of weakness. It reveals that your attention carried weight. It meant something. And instead of chasing to reassure her, he starves the cycle even further. He invests that energy into himself, his body, his craft, his mission. He understands that curiosity grows in silence, but respect grows in discipline. So when she says, "Other men notice me now," the reactive man panics. The Stoic man smiles and says, "That's good. You deserve to be noticed. I'm focused on bigger things." That calm response does two things. It kills her attempt to trigger your jealousy, and it reinforces that you don't measure your worth against competition. You've already won by refusing to step onto the battlefield. And here's the paradox. Sometimes her search elsewhere only makes her realize how different you truly are. Other men may flood her with attention, but it doesn't taste the same. It doesn't carry the same weight as yours because you didn't give it away. You invested it. And that difference unsettles her. She may drift further, or she may circle back, drawn not by your pursuit, but by your composure. Either way, brother, you win. Because you've proven to yourself that your self-worth isn't chained to anyone's approval. Remember this truth. A relationship built on constant ego feeding is not love. It's a transaction. And the moment you stop paying, the deal falls apart. That's why the Stoic man never competes for validation. He commands respect by refusing to trade his peace for anyone's attention. Let her seek validation elsewhere. Let her chase shadows, because while she's searching for oxygen in shallow places, you'll be building lungs that can breathe in any storm. And that's when something remarkable happens. Her irritation turns to respect, which leads us to the next stage. When the storm calms, her respect for you quietly begins to rise. 4. Respect rises in silence. Brother, here's a paradox most men never see. The less you orbit her, the more her respect grows. At first, when you pull back your attention, she might act irritated, colder, even accuse you of being distant. To the untrained eye, this looks like rejection. But beneath the surface, something deeper is happening. The very thing she claims to dislike, the space you've created, is the thing that forces her to see you differently. Why? Because respect is not born from constant approval. Respect is born from boundaries. When you refuse to let her moods dictate your actions, you are showing her a version of manhood she rarely encounters. Most men, the moment they sense her pulling away, panic. They text more, they call more, they explain themselves endlessly. They bend, fold, and compromise until they're unrecognizable. And in doing so, they kill the very respect they hope to earn. But you, when you stop orbiting her emotions and anchor yourself in your mission, you flip the script. Psychology calls this scarcity effect. The less available something is, the more it's valued. By not being constantly accessible, by not selling your attention cheaply, you raise its worth. At first, she may resist this shift because it unsettles her sense of control. But soon, the irritation gives way to respect. Deep down, she knows you cannot be bent so easily. Picture this moment. She snaps, "You don't make me a priority anymore." The average man panics, scrambles to prove otherwise. The Stoic man, calm and steady, replies, "I don't make anyone a priority over my peace." That's not arrogance, that's sovereignty. And brother, sovereignty is rare, it's magnetic. It communicates without needing to shout that your worth isn't rented from her approval, it's owned by you. This is the essence of Stoicism. To remain unmoved by tides of approval or rejection. To live anchored to principles, not swayed by storms. When Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he was reminding us that discipline, focus, and clarity are what paint your life, not the shifting emotions of others. When you embody that truth, you stop being just another man in her orbit. You become the center of your own gravity. And whether she admits it or not, she feels it. Here's the paradox that bites hardest. Women may enjoy constant attention, but they cannot respect a man without a backbone. Respect doesn't come from the man who gives everything away. It comes from the man who knows how to keep himself. Every moment you choose mission over mood, discipline over drama, you teach her that if she wants your time, she must bring value to the table. And that's when her respect begins to grow, not from words, but from instinct. Brother, understand this. Respect is the soil in which true attraction grows. Without it, everything withers. With it, even storms can be weathered. So don't be fooled by her irritation, her accusations, her tests. Look past the noise and see the shift. Because beneath it all, her respect is rising, quietly but steadily. And that respect is far more powerful than fleeting attraction. It's the foundation for anything worth having. But here's where it gets dangerous. When she realizes she's losing her place in your mind, and her respect grows in silence, she may not sit still. She may rewrite the story itself to protect her ego. And that's when the past suddenly looks very different in her words than it did in reality. 5. The past rewritten. Brother, when she realizes she's no longer the unquestioned center of your life, she doesn't always face that truth directly. Instead, she reaches for one of the oldest defense mechanisms the ego knows. She rewrites the past. This isn't about honesty, it's about control. By reshaping the story, she shields herself from the sting of losing you and keeps the illusion that she was the one holding the power all along. You'll start to hear it through friends, through whispers, sometimes even from her own mouth. Suddenly, the relationship she once cherished becomes something she wasn't that into. She'll claim she saw the signs early, or that she knew it wouldn't last. These aren't facts. They're narratives crafted to protect her image. And if you aren't grounded, hearing those distortions can sting. Your pride wants to fire back, to correct the record, to prove that her version of history is false. But here's the trap. The moment you defend yourself, you step into her frame. You validate her importance by showing you still care what she says. You reveal that you're still emotionally tied to her perception. That's how men waste energy, arguing against stories that were never about truth in the first place. They were about ego. The Stoic man knows better. He doesn't chase the shadows of someone else's narrative. He understands that truth doesn't need defending, it needs living. When she says, "We were never really that serious," you don't argue, you don't explain, you don't campaign for witnesses. You shrug and calmly answer, "Believe what you need. I'm moving forward." That answer disarms her, because it denies her the drama she was hoping to spark. It shows that your life, your mission, your progress are louder than any words she can invent. And here's the beauty of it. People always notice patterns. Over time, when her words paint one picture, but your life demonstrates another, the contrast becomes undeniable. Her revisionist story collapses under the weight of your reality, and nothing crushes ego like silent proof. Brother, you must realize, her rewriting of the past isn't about you, it's about her. It's her attempt to cushion the fall of no longer being chosen. Don't take it personally. Use it as a reminder that your focus belongs on building, not defending. Because the man who spends his days correcting lies is still chained to the liar. But the man who lives in such a way that no lie can stick, that man is free. And when rewriting the story doesn't restore her power, she often turns to something even sharper. She plays the victim. And that move is designed not just to rewrite the past, but to put you on trial in the present. 6. The mask of victimhood. Brother, when she realizes her old tactics aren't working, when the tests fall flat, when the ego games don't bend you, when rewriting the past doesn't shake your foundation, she often reaches for the most manipulative card of all: victimhood. Playing the victim isn't about truth, it's about leverage. It's about flipping the script so she regains the moral high ground without ever facing her own choices. Here's how it looks. Suddenly, conversations with mutual friends are peppered with hints of how you've changed. She suggests you've wronged her, or that she gave everything while you gave nothing. She might even tell people you hurt her more than anyone else. The aim isn't accuracy, it's sympathy. If she can convince others that she's the innocent one, she wins support. If she can convince you that you're the villain, she regains control. And if you're not careful, you'll fall straight into the trap. Because the natural instinct of a good man is to defend himself. When someone paints you as cruel, cold, or careless, every fiber in you wants to prove the truth. You want to show the receipts, explain the context, clear your name. But brother, hear me. That's exactly what she wants. The moment you defend yourself in the court of public opinion, you give her what she couldn't get through tests or ego, your energy. You've now accepted the role she's written for you, the accused, fighting for redemption in a story she controls. Psychology explains this perfectly. Victimhood provides two rewards: sympathy from others and power over the accused. It's ego protection disguised as innocence. By claiming she was wronged, she shields herself from accountability. By pulling you into defense mode, she proves you still care. But the Stoic man doesn't fall for this theater. He knows that reputation is built not by arguments, but by patterns. Words fade, but results remain. So what do you do when she says, "You hurt me more than anyone"? You resist the urge to plead or argue. Instead, you breathe, you ground yourself, and you reply with calm authority, "I won't argue with your story. I'll just live mine with integrity." That single line dismantles the power of her victimhood because it denies her the drama. You refuse the stage, you refuse the role, and suddenly the spotlight falls only on her words. And over time, people notice when words don't match reality. This is Stoicism in action. You cannot stop people from talking. You cannot control every story that's told. But you can control your discipline, your actions, your character, And when those things shine consistently, louder than gossip, the truth becomes self-evident. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And that, brother, is your shield. Not defense, not debate, just demonstration. Here's the irony. Victimhood only works as long as it has an audience. When you no longer fuel the narrative with your protests, it loses oxygen. The sympathy fades, the drama collapses, and all that's left is her standing alone with a story that no longer moves anyone. Meanwhile, you've kept your dignity intact, your peace untouched, your mission alive. Brother, let her play the victim. Let her paint her story. Because the man who doesn't bend to lies ends up standing tallest in truth. And when the victim card loses its power, she's forced to reach for something even more tempting, pulling you back in with warmth, nostalgia, and the illusion of closeness. That, brother, is the next trap, and it's one you must be ready for. 7. The trap of warmth. Brother, when every other tactic has failed, when the tests didn't bend you, when the ego plays didn't work, when the victim card fell flat, she often reaches for her most dangerous weapon. She flips the switch back to warmth. Suddenly, the same woman who tested your patience, accused you, or painted herself as the victim, begins showing you the charm that once pulled you in. She brings back nostalgia, sweet words, familiar affection, and your heart, tired of the battles, wants to believe this means she finally understands, that she finally gets it. But this is where you must slow down and see clearly, because the trap of warmth is not always about love. Often, it's about control. Think of it this way. When she feels her grip slipping, she knows that harshness alone won't bring you back, so she reaches for softness. She drops little reminders of the past, suggests just one coffee, or suddenly becomes more affectionate. And for a man who has fought to detach, this feels like rain in the desert. You remember the good times, the laughter, the moments that made you fall in love in the first place. And deep inside, a voice whispers, "She's changed. She finally sees my value." That is the danger, because the truth is, nothing in her behavior has changed except the mask. This warmth is often a test in disguise. It's her way of checking whether she can still reel you in at will. And if you drop your boundaries here, you send a message louder than words. Yes, you can reset me anytime you want. Yes, you still own my emotions. The moment you cross that line, the cycle begins again. Same games, different day. And the respect you've gained by holding the frame evaporates overnight. This is why Stoic wisdom is vital. You must anchor in vision, not emotion. Your life must be built on a mission that no wave of warmth or storm of conflict can pull you away from. Because emotions are temporary, but vision is steady. She might say softly, "I miss how it used to be," and your old self would melt. But the man who has grown replies calmly, "If the future doesn't look different, the past isn't enough." That one sentence separates you from every man who collapses under nostalgia. It forces her to face the reality that charm without change is manipulation. Understand this. Nostalgia is powerful because it paints over the pain. It makes you remember only the good while forgetting the reasons you walked away. But you cannot build a future by recycling the past. If she wants back in your life, it cannot be because of warmth in the moment. It has to be because of sustained change in her actions. And if that change never comes, then the right move is to keep walking. Brother, every time you choose vision over emotion, you strengthen the muscle of self-respect. Every time you refuse to fall for the comfort of familiar affection, you prove that your growth is not for sale. And here's the irony. When she realizes she cannot buy her way back into your life with charm, her respect for you solidifies. because deep down, even she knows that a man who refuses to betray himself is the kind of man who cannot be replaced. But the journey doesn't end here, because even if she moves on, even if she finds someone new, one truth remains. Her eyes will still search for you silently from a distance. And that, brother, is where her final reaction begins. 8. Eyes that never leave. Brother, even when she walks away, don't be fooled into thinking she's gone completely. She may post pictures with someone new, project happiness, and tell the world she's thriving. But those eyes that once watched you so closely, never really leave. Curiosity is a stubborn thread, and it ties her back to you long after she's convinced herself the story is over. What you need to understand is this: the images she shares, the smiles she puts on display, they're not always about joy. Many times, they're about sending a message. They are a stage performance designed to prove she's moved on, while behind the curtain her curiosity still lingers. And you'll see it in small ways: a late-night profile view, a question passed through mutual friends, a subtle comment on something you've achieved, wrapped as if it's casual. These are not accidents. They are the quiet signals of someone who is still measuring, still checking, still wondering. But here's the trap. Many men take this as a green light. They see her eyes watching, and they think, she must still want me. Maybe I should reopen the door. That's when they make the mistake of confusing curiosity with commitment. Curiosity is not desire. It's not a promise, not a plan, not a step toward reconciliation. It's the ego's way of asking, could I still have him if I wanted? That's not love, it's reassurance. And if you take her watching as proof that she's changed, you put yourself back into the cycle you fought so hard to escape. This is where many men undo months of progress because they mistake being checked on for being chosen. You need to flip the frame. Her watching isn't your invitation, it's your confirmation. It confirms that your absence has weight, that your silence left a mark, that your growth hasn't gone unnoticed. But it doesn't mean you should stop and look back. In fact, this is the very moment to keep building, because every step forward you take, every achievement you add, every ounce of strength you build in silence becomes the reflection she cannot escape. When she asks indirectly, "So, how have you been?" The man still tied to the past gives a long story. The Stoic man smiles and simply says, "Better than I've ever been." That answer is not arrogance, it's liberation. It closes the loop without bitterness, without begging, without anger. It tells her, and more importantly yourself, that you have become untouchable, that the chapter served its purpose, but the book is still being written by you, not by her. And the truth is, that's the only closure you ever need. Not her apology, not her return, not her recognition, just the undeniable reality that you're thriving without her. And here's the final shift. When she sees you strong, silent, and centered, her respect quietly deepens, even if she never speaks it. Because no matter what she tells herself, or what story she sells to others, she cannot ignore the evidence. You rebuilt, you grew, you rose. And now, her eyes, though they may never leave, can no longer control. This is where your power peaks, not in making her come back, not in proving her wrong, but in living in such a way that even those who once underestimated you can't look away. That is the essence of Stoic victory. You don't just move on, you rise so far above that even when they're watching, they know the story no longer belongs to them. And that truth, the sight of you unshaken, is the viral moment that burns into memory long after everything else fades. When you step back and look at the full journey, you see a pattern that was always there. The storm of her tests, the bruise to her ego, the scramble for validation, the silent rise of respect, the rewriting of the past. the mask of victimhood, the trap of warmth, and finally the eyes that